All right, Nick Barbati, our tribal chief says CM Punk is old. He said that was the key line, but he also said he can't even main event a European tour. He's not better than him at anything. He's faster. He's stronger. Just tore him apart. He patted him on the head and said, "You're a good talker," but he's tired of. He said at the same time, "Your insults to me are trite. You repeat yourself over and over. Part-time this, part-time that." Roman scored a lot of points. How do you think he did, and did Punk score any back?
Well, I think it's obvious that someone in WWE is listening to the PWTorch post shows when I'm on, because I felt like it was a transcription of conversations we've had. Here is the thing. There's an issue when Roman basically told all the truths. So yes, they're both maybe in babyface territory, and maybe that's the novelty of going into this WrestleMania, is that there is no proper heel here. However, there is this looming hypocrisy that always exists over CM Punk that everyone is just supposed to look past. And everything was on full display today. And I think when you say, did CM Punk get any in, I don't think he needed to. I don't think tonight was about that. Obviously, this was a major counterpunch to the big, your you'd be dang dead with your father type comment. And that's okay. I think there was a couple of points that I would say coming out of the big segment is too much talking, which was leading for this entirety of this feud, which is why the key punch at the end was important. But at the end, I don't think ultimately that punch did anything for CM Punk. I actually think tonight was all about remaking Roman Reigns' character as the most important in WWE. And it went a long way, actually, in doing so. There was so much reminder that was placed for any of the fans of who Roman really, really is and who he should have been probably for the past 2 years.
Yeah, this seemed like, I mean, if somebody wrote everything, a third party, this seemed like it was to strengthen Roman Reigns more than strengthening CM Punk. Now, they've got some freedom to freestyle with each other, come up with their own material, even surprise each other a little bit. Some of that goes on. I don't know how much of that went on in this promo. I thought that it was unbecoming of Punk to mock Roman's name. And,
Totally.
like the tone was heelish and disrespectful. Last time when he said, "Oh, I'm going to bury next to your dad," we're like, well, that was kind of weird. So, and then there turned out to be a point to it. It's the Usos are going to be mad about it too. Maybe there's a point to that, maybe not. And then we got basically a Samoa Joe chant tonight. Punk says the real Samoan Joe, is I love him, and he's my best friend. Whatever he said about Samoa Joe, and the fans started chanting Joe, meeting Samoa Joe. So it's kind of cool because they've got a history there, a nice little nod there. But what I liked about this compared to the last segment, and I wrote about this in the Wade Keller News Bulletin, which I also turned into a podcast for VIP members, is this stayed in canon more. This was about who the better wrestler is in the end. Yes, you're going to get inside people's heads. And Roman said, you're good at getting inside of people's heads, playing psychological games, whatever. That's part of the sport, part of the game is the implication there. But this wasn't dwelling on part-time or being a drawing card or not representing well in the back. Ultimately, the crescendo here was Reigns going, all right, you want me to say something? I'll say it. I'm better than you. You can't hang with me. That belt around your waist is an embarrassment, which, by the way, Nick, sounds like that, Roman was listening to your last take on Punk, on Nikki's club more so than on this show. Although it's been on both. And you're old. I mean, I'm going to beat you. And that got to Punk. Like Punk is Punk, Punk's character, his persona is I'm level, I'm steady. I mean, in real life, sometimes not at certain press conferences back in the day, but like he's like, hey, I'll dish it out and then dish it out to me. I'll take it. But the old thing got to him, which is an interesting, chapter in this, right?
Right. And it was interesting. That was obviously the big point for everyone to remember coming out of the segment. Here's what I would say, though, Wade. There was a reliance that Punk's charm would get him through, I think, to get some of the licks in. I don't think any of them landed. I think the things seemed to pop off the cart for Punk when he tried mocking Roman Reigns' real name. I think that was tone deaf, and I think it read tone deaf immediately. You could kind of even see it was like, all right, let's move quickly. And then they tried leaning in on the Samoa Joe as a save to it, but I don't know. It felt like that would have been a card and a line that had been played previously and better. I think ultimately, here's what it was to me. If you're looking at CM Punk as obviously the face of Raw right now, right? The ex-girlfriend who was always sexier, who was always more interesting, who was always more exotic, just came back to visit for the holidays. And it showed through in a big way. And you know what? Maybe CM Punk's the girlfriend we're going to have moving forward, but the ex really, really was looking good on this Thanksgiving Eve. And that's what it looked like today. I think Punk does look old. And I think that, while that was very sharp and it played well into the characters, as you're saying, it's a little on the nose too. And everyone knows it. So, in terms of a strong segment, sure it was. I think it's also going to play into, it seems obvious to me that Solo and the Tongans are going to be coming over to form a much more, part of the early part of the storyline was Roman has no one behind him. And I think what we're going to see by WrestleMania is actually everyone's behind him. So then you have CM Punk going up against an army. And that works quite well for me, actually.
Yeah. They've got to sell this. They've got to sell this without getting boring in the next few weeks. You want elements to happen that, one, don't distract from what they've built to this point. Take into account how crowds are reacting and all that, but try to advance things, keep things interesting. I'm not convinced that he's going to bring everybody else over. But it did seem to lay the groundwork for that if they want to, and Punk's like, oh, you're setting people after me. And Roman clarified, no, I'm just sort of giving permission for people to do what they want before after Mania, but at Mania, you're mine. That was the message to the Usos in particular. So the pieces are in place there, and if they want to play that hand, I don't know that. Do you think adding Solo in this feud helps at all?
I do. I actually do.
Yeah,
I really do, actually. So here's the thing. I think there's always been, and as much as the Bloodline storyline actually seemingly had a finale in a way that the NWO storyline, for example, did not, there's still unfinished business, I would say, to actually do. I don't know if the finale that we saw on, I think it was that Netflix, the first debut of Netflix, none of it was actually super satisfying. And it's obvious that Solo and the Tongans are treading water. Tama Tongas in particular seems to be taking off a bit on social media, and there seems to be more of a backing for him. I just think that it probably makes more sense for everybody to come together in this, the Avengers Endgame type of way, with all of these wrestlers of Samoan or Tongan heritage coming together, and CM Punk having the seemingly insurmountable crew to go up against. To me, I think it works. It's more interesting than just the Usos. I think there's so much of the Usos right now, and there's no bigger fan than Jay than I, but so much of it seems like, okay, we've done that. We've never seen the whole crew all on one unified front. And quite frankly, it fits what you would know of the culture, to that if you start insulting the elders, particularly the past elders, that everyone would kind of unify against that. That fits the storyline for me, and I think would work well here.
All right, let's pause and introduce ourselves quick. And then I want to throw some reader comments that I'm kind of got mine on the sidebar here, and reacting to what we're saying and adding a couple other topics. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Monday, March 16th, 2026. And I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch Weekly newsletter, host of the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Shows that stream live on YouTube and then are distributed after that on our podcast feed. It has other shows on it besides our YouTube shows. So if you have not yet, subscribe to the post shows. Just search Wade Keller in your podcast app. You'll see the red logo pop up, and then you'll also see a blue logo pop up. The blue logo is for our flagship. Last week, Greg Parks was with me. The week before, Jason Powell from ProWrestling.net. Tomorrow, Rich Fan is scheduled to join me. That'll drop on Tuesday night. We'll talk about a broad array of topics, but in particular, a lot of WrestleMania build. Both of those feeds have a ton of other content on them, classic interviews. Last Friday, Stephanie Chase joined me for an AEW pay-per-view preview. We also included the Tony Khan Media Q&A. So hit refresh every day to see what pops up. There's some fascinating 15 years ago flashbacks, too, if you want to relive what we're talking about in WrestleMania season 5, 10, or 15 years ago. Those pop up on the feed also. While you're at it, search PWTorch and subscribe to the PWTorch Daily Cast. And that includes a different show each day of the week with different hosts, different pairs of hosts, and different themes. But we are here to talk Raw, and I have with me the host of the Nikki's Club, a VIP exclusive podcast, Nick Barbati. He was a contributor to the PWTorch website for a long time with written reports, including SmackDown hits and misses, and now he is a semi-regular here in the co-host chair. You've got a great background. I like the 40 kind of angle of the wall behind you, the photo. It's not too distracting, but it's not too plain.
Elegant.
A nice new hoodie. I mean, and the headset fits you well. Look at that.
Hey, listen, when the hell am I doing the flagship? I have to pull these late nighters, but get me on a flagship every once in a while, Wade.
Well, if you watch like a month of AEW, then we can. But we talk more than just WWE.
Oh, well, I'm not doing that. But anyway, glad to be here.
You know what I was thinking? Actually, it's funny you say that, Nick. I was thinking earlier today, I want to have Nick. I'm not kidding. This was just a few hours ago. Like 6 hours ago. I was like, I want to have Nick on the flagship sometime, but I have to do a double header where I get somebody who's kind of an AEW exclusive person on, yes. And we just do 45 minutes for each of you for an hour and a half, and kind of hit on both. So, because you're right, it would be nice to mix that up and have you on the flagship so you don't have to stay up so late. Because I mean, I know your mood is much better earlier in the day than you show here.
Oh, totally. I had to nap for this thing, for the record. Proper nap. Pajamas on at 3:00. Me and the dog went to bed. Hey, listen, I'm so glad to be here. I actually thought tonight was a great show, and I'm pumped to talk about it. I love interacting with the PWTorch family. It's great. It's great to do it. Always great to be here, and I love that the Nikki's Club, Wade. You've given me this platform. It seems to really be taking off. I mean, out of nowhere, I've been getting so many great emails and just outreach on social media saying that they like the new format. And that it mixes up kind of the approach to some of the podcasts, of which are often two-person shows. Yep. That they like the one-person format, which is really interesting to me. Yep. But I think it's such a great platform. And we look at all things WWE once a week. Wednesdays or Thursdays it'll drop, and we really we're in WrestleMania season, so we're doing a little bit. We do some evergreen style shows, and then a mixture of what's going on in the week in WWE. So it's great to be here. Many years of PWTorch action over here. You
have had some co-hosts on the show, but it is fun. It is a different format, and it lands differently when you feel the host is talking to you as opposed to listening in on the co-host talking with each other. And you're good in that format. Not everybody is. Man, but editing that show is such a hassle. I mean, all the swearing, all the breaks, all the pauses, all the Wade edit this, I have to restate it.
That never happens. It's literally it's a record and keep going. People, do not let this man over here.
You can't even do it right. You just point it off camera. Yeah, got to do the opposite of what you think.
It's on
all right. All right, trust Nick, not me. He's probably right. All right, very good. So go VIP, everybody. Don't miss out on our VIP exclusive lineup. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. You can sign up with your Apple account with Patreon. That links up with Spotify if you're in the Spotify ecosystem. You can also pay with credit card, debit card, or PayPal. There's no advanced settings or passwords to enter. We have a really slick setup. You'll get an email when you sign up to a full VIP membership. Click it. It'll automatically sign you up on Apple Podcasts if that's your main podcast source. So, we'd love to have you as a member. And you can see not only all the new content that we put up throughout the week, including, by the way, the last night, very late night, AEW Revolution post-show roundtable. Todd Martin and Rich Fan joining me for roughly an hour or so reviewing the pay-per-view. And we've been doing that for over 2 decades. So there's on-demand, by the way, over 2 decades of post-pay-per-view roundtables covering every WWE and AEW pay-per-view, some TNA and ROH shows too in the mix. So, I could go on and on. It's a cool thing, and it's WrestleMania season. So go VIP, if for no other reason than to email Nikki's Club. Yeah. Become a fan. Join the club. Yep. What do you have to do to get on the club?
You have to actually just listen to me. You can argue with me. That's what we do. You know what I always say about the Nickies, Wade? We are triggered easily. We're very emotional, and we're prone to violence. But that's what puts the Nikki in Nikki's Club. We're all Nickies.
prone to violence. All right. Let's tell people that they can participate if they're watching us live on YouTube, and then we're going to get to callers. And as I said, we're going to start with a few chat comments on Punk and Reigns. We also have the Brock Lesnar, Obafemi, Seth Rollins segment at the top of the show to talk about too, and some good stuff in the middle, and get more of Nick's thoughts on why he thought this was a good show. All right, if you want to participate, if you're watching us live on YouTube, the chat's open. Join in. It's a great environment. It's a fun, positive place. Not everybody agrees, but everybody's civil, and it's a fun place to be. So join us live. If you're listening to us on the podcast side of things, you can always find the link to the YouTube show in my TV reports at PWTorch on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays for Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. And if you're on the podcast side of things, because you listen on delay, but you want to be part of the show, you can email us, wadekellerpostshow@gmail.com, wadekellerpostshow@gmail.com. If you have a question for the flagship tomorrow, by the way, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. Send that in. We're probably recording tomorrow night, so you got a little bit more time. Normally, we record in the afternoon. So if you have a question, a topic, a follow-up, or anything, topic suggestion, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. And finally, if you want to be on the show live tonight, if you're watching us live, you can click on the link in my aforementioned TV report covering Raw at our PWTorch website. And click on the link. You'll go in the waiting room. And then when the time is right, we'll bring you on. You can turn your camera off if you prefer and just be audio only like our Blog Talk Radio days, or go on camera. We have a super chat, so we're going to interrupt programming for that. It is Paul Purvis who says, Wade, you and Nick are not cursed. I'm a little let down. I'd almost rather be cursed.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure that that's actually true, but thank you for the well wishes today.
Appreciate it. So yes, Paul reminds us super chats are open and available and appreciated. Okay, let's see. Four Eyes Malone's about to go to sleep, so I'm going to throw his chat up. It's unrelated. Putting this in before I fall asleep. My 4-year-old daughter loves seeing Penta. She was also terrified seeing Randy and Cody's SmackDown edit. We'll talk about that in a bit, but I wanted Four Eyes Malone to hear that we included him on the show. Okay. So chat comments on the Roman segment. Let's just throw a couple of them up here, and we can respond as we go. Dougie Dog says, hey, all, I haven't watched Raw or popped in here since WrestleMania season last year. Missed you, Dougie. Roman makes Punk and the rest of the roster look like amateurs by comparison. It'd be silly if Punk beats him at WrestleMania. Roman is good. He is self-assured. He's cool. There's something about Roman where things are very important to him, and he makes it clear, but he doesn't act like he's desperate, that like those things that are important to him. He's cool. Like, what more of a baby face is there than call me any this is how I am. Like, any stranger can call you any rando can call you part-time, but as long as my wife and kids say I'm a good full-time dad, that's what I care about. That was a quote from Roman earlier. Like, right. Yes, like a baby face with his priorities straight. But you can be full-time and a good dad too, but like Roman's like, when you say that, you are insulting me using my leverage for the dues I paid, the star I am, and the dues my family paid, and the money I draw, and the matches I win, kayfabe, canon, whatever. You're saying I should be away from my kids more. That every time you say I'm part-time, you're saying be around your kids less. I don't know how Punk counters that. So Roman is in a good spot. That said, I think Punk is overall holding his own fine. The crowd, and I say that not because I think Roman's scoring more points than Punk. I think some of Punk's points are kind of, whatever. But the crowds are behind him. There's CM Punk chants, there's OTC chants. They're singing Roman Reigns, but they're chanting for CM Punk. I don't see it as lopsided. I don't think fans who liked Punk now don't like him, or vice versa in any large number. Right. So it's even enough for me. Nick? Well,
it still feels major, which is really all that they have to be at. For example, people look back at WrestleMania 17 as some great build. That is not the case between Rock and Austin. It was one of the notoriously worst builds that ever took place with that Deborah McMichael storyline. And then they did the debating format when they abandoned the Deborah McMichael storyline. And if you remember, Wade, every week in, week out, The Rock was outclassing Steve Austin. And it wasn't necessarily, maybe it was scripted to be, but it was also because he was just a more dynamic performer at that point in time in the career. But it didn't change the fact that the match still felt like the biggest option that they had. And has gone down to be a really important, match in history because of the class level of the two stars. For me, it's not so much that CM Punk walked out with not getting any licks in. There is this thing, though, as I mentioned at the start, of they have to really work to rectify some of the hypocrisy elements of CM Punk, in that it makes him, if he's a hero, you can't have a hero that lies or is a hypocrite. And I think that line about AJ Lee was actually the most damning part. And I maintain that is something that they should really work to rectify, even if it is something along the lines of, I don't even know. I was surprised a bit actually by the AJ Lee line, because
elaborate why. What was meant by it, and what didn't land the way it should have with Punk, or what didn't he respond in the way that you expected?
It landed. I think it was on the nose, because I just wasn't thinking in the context of her, but it fits with the the whole thing about CM Punk coming back. There was so much about him being rushed to the main event of WrestleMania last year after coming back and quote not even paying his dues. But he's done a lot in the meantime. He's been in, week out. He's kind of re-earned this spot in a way that kind of takes away that hypocritical notion. But knowing that for years and years he was complaining about special attractions taking the major spots in WWE, and then to have AJ Lee literally doing that right now in front of all of our eyes. That's kind of something they shouldn't have stepped in. And I don't even know if that was even worth saying. It was effective and memorable, sure, but that doesn't make it the right thing to do, because at some point Punk becomes unlikable. Now, here is the other thing. When we were saying about the previous person who wrote in, I missed the name, was saying about Roman basically outclassing everybody. There is a truth to it, and it's something that which is why that last line landed. There is Roman has a confidence. He has an ease. He has the poise that is at a different level than others. It comes with just being comfortable and knowing exactly who you are at any given moment. However, there's also this looming thing that we all know, which is, quite frankly, in the ring, I think he's got a heck of a lot more of a higher quality, dynamic in-ring ability than we know CM Punk to have right now. And so I just think some of those things are true, and there is a limit. There is a real limit, I feel like, in what CM Punk is going to be able to do. Could something magical happen at WrestleMania? Absolutely. There was something I think that happened today on Raw that we'll get into that I wasn't expecting quality-wise in the ring. So magic can happen. But I think going into this, there's just a higher confidence level towards Roman's ability to perform.
Before I put up other chat comments, you said something there. What is Punk's response going to be to the line, "You're just old"? What does that set up? Obviously, the line about burying next to your dad set up a whole segment the following week. Does Punk spend 2 weeks being shaken by that? Does he dye his hair like Drew McIntyre, jet black, and go, "I'm not young anymore"? What's the response?
Well, I think the response is in the actions. I think he needs to, which is why I truly believe that they're setting up him to go after all of the other, wrestlers of Samoan or Tongan heritage. I think he's going to show that despite his age, he can still take all comers. And I think that's just the counterpoint. There is no debate on age. We all are fighting it, but we also, when it comes to him, we all see it. It is what it is, right? That's why I don't. Some of these lines, Wade, they're memorable. Are they worth it in the long run? I don't know. It doesn't make me feel very good as a fan to watch it, nor do I actually think it's accurate for someone at Punk's age and stature for that to be like this crippling knock to him. But I think as a character, then he just has to show his worth by fighting off all comers. And for the record, I'm not insinuating that I think that the MFTs are suddenly going to be main event level individuals, but I think they add to an ensemble, which makes sense to the larger characterization of Roman early on, that he doesn't have anyone behind him. And I do think it's an interesting twist on the story, even if it's just Solo, that suddenly he has everybody behind him.
Another comment here, well, along these lines, Intentional Rounding says, interesting and weird that what set Punk off was being called old rather than line about AJ Lee, where Roman said you should ask your wife what the top players do. Did Punk respond appropriately to that in that moment? Or
I don't think the AJ Lee line wasn't a real insult. I mean, what's the insult? Your wife's
successful,
what I was getting at. She's a legend.
Yeah,
that wasn't anything for him to really get mad at.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I would say in response to Intentional Rounding, that what Nick just said, it wasn't good enough to be all that upset about. I don't think it was one of Roman's stronger points. It actually was a little sexist. Like, well, the man, hey man, ask your woman. She, how insulting would it be that she's the main event player and you're not? I mean, it doesn't have to be gender based. It's more just, your partner is a bigger deal than you are. But I don't think that was one of the stronger lines. But anytime you bring up somebody's spouse, or in the case of Roman, his dad, you would expect a fired up response. But I guess maybe no selling it just because it didn't really sting might be within the realm of a reasonable response for Punk.
Right.
Yeah. Sadler, version 3, says they need to get more creative. I want version 2 and 1 to show up one day. They need to get more creative with these promos in WrestleMania season. Every time they do these face-to-face promos, they get slightly worse. They should do interview segments with Cole to freshen it up. I disagree.
I totally agree.
No, I disagree that this was worse than the prior ones. Because it plays into my thing, Nick, where it stayed in canon. This wasn't about your mood backstage is dour, so you shouldn't be champion. This was I'm better than you, and you're old. To me, it's better for that. You can say, well, they should have done that the first time and not done 3 of them. Okay, fair.
Yes.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not reacting to that. This was worse of the 3. It did feel redundant. That here we go again.
Yep.
The initial and was the quality higher? Sure, but I think I do think ultimately it was a really good show, but I do think this should have come earlier in the show. There's something this was flat for me in terms of how the last segment landed. Not totally, it wasn't a failure, but it just felt like we're just rinsing and recycling and trying one new counterpunch verbally at the end. I really would have liked, the backstage segment, the interview segment. That's what they did with Rock and Austin to that same match. I keep recalling, but this is what it most accurately reminds me of. There's just no reason to not mix it up any further. I just don't understand why they're not.
Dougie Doug says, I cringed when Punk called him Titty Tiaki with a self-satisfied expression.
No, it was racist. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. It felt racist to me. But I'm not calling him a racist, but it's the idea that it was so racially insensitive. It was so tone deaf. It was just ridiculous. I'm surprised it even made it through.
Yeah, it was culturally lame. And Punk isn't. That's so off-brand for Punk. Punk's somebody who would lecture somebody else on not taking a second to learn a name that isn't just John or Jane. I don't
know. Wade. I know Punk. I know Punk's mouth to get him in trouble, and then offering the immediate full-throated apology that somehow makes him land as the most, the more woke individual of everybody. And you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
All right, Darrell Freeman says, I like that the old line got to Punk because he is an aging star who's trying to stay at top. And I know he knows he's fighting against people in Father Time. I bet LeBron James would get mad being called old.
I don't know. Terry Funk wouldn't have been mad at being called old. I think. I really wish CM Punk would embrace the more aged brawler element of his repertoire, and I think it fits his personality better. I actually don't think CM Punk would get mad about being old. I think CM Punk as a character would probably say all these lines are what made me who I am today. That's the character, actually.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Mark Biscotti says, this feels too much like as Raw turns. They're really just writing the same basic template 3 times in a row. The old line being a trigger was low-hanging fruit, but is it going to sell more tickets? The key is follow-up. What is a follow-up? Because Punk could end up looking kind of lame if he's like, how dare you call 48-year-old me, walking around with a world title belt saying I'm the best in the world at age 48, old. That's not a strong stand to take. You're delusional if you don't know that that's true. He is old by definition for the position he's in. And Punk, by snapping, it does make him look like I don't know if delusional is a word, but I don't dare I say thin-skinned, at least.
Or immature, emotionally stunted.
Yeah, emotionally immature. And so how does he regroup from that? What is his comeback? Roman, we're both in our 40s. You're on the early side. I'm on the late side. But, I did take some years off. I feel good. I feel better than I have in a long time. And, when you lose to an old guy, as you put it, that's going to be embarrassing for you. Embrace it. Go, this old guy's going to beat you.
That's why him being angry doesn't do him any favors as a babyface.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that he did that, but my mind is churning going, okay, he could have let that slide or had a comeback and go, I'm older than you. Big deal. Guess what? This older guy's going to beat you, and you're going to be embarrassed. Yeah, and he didn't do that. So what did they have in mind, or did they just not think of that? Yeah. All right, a couple other chat comments here, then we'll get to our callers. Forrest Malone says, Punk even as a say what he wants. Sorry, there's some syntax here. What kind of person is also the same guy who says he accepts everyone? So it seems contradictory. Yeah, Forrest Malone just getting into the notion that Punk accepts everyone, but there he was acting, hypocritically contradictory to what he preaches.
I thought it was also weird that in 1 second he made that stupid joke about his name and then said, I don't have time to look up your real name. And then acknowledged his real name was Joe. Like, that was stupid.
Well, like, I don't know if Liati Joseph, I mean, he has like Joseph's his like second name or middle name or something like that. So
is that right?
There's a more cultural, there's a name, more Samoan name that he doesn't go by. That Punk was referencing, but I don't think people know that. I don't even know how many people know name is Joe. They don't talk about it a lot because it's not like Phil where you just know. So I don't know. I mean, it could have been framed better, or they might have wanted to go to something else that maybe people are more familiar with. Although people are just researching now, Googling.
I wouldn't be surprised if that line was edited out in the future.
Oh, good. Yeah, it is interesting to see what makes it to social media snippets. Yeah. That kind of thing. All right. Forrest Malone says, one thing I really liked was Roman directing himself to the camera when he got out of the car. I didn't like Punk using a stereotype joke name for Roman. Yeah, pretty unanimous here so far. Consensus that was a bad line. But yeah, Roman you don't see wrestlers look at the camera very often. That's usually, unless it's the interview segment where it's old school interview. So to have a Roman camera backstage and Roman look at it, I think it landed more as he's talking to people in TV land. In this case, other Samoans, kind of as Punk said, are you calling on him? And he's just going, I'm just giving him permission. Yeah,
I mean, listen, I don't want to belabor this, and I also don't want this to turn into a thing. I think it's interesting that he made that line, which it stuck out, but it stuck out in the same way when Cody Rhodes was used a Raheem line. Like, I just think this is someone backstage needs to have a real conversation internally about what are we doing here. There's things that are just edgy, and then there's things that are just not worth even embracing, and that's what they're doing. You're muted, Wade.
I think the content that we're getting to is an argument against doing 3 face-to-face segments. They're kind of like, what are we going to do? And that's what we thought a couple weeks ago. And it's like, oh, I'm going to bury you next to your daddy. Like, is that our best material? But it was to set up the Uso thing in retrospect. So I don't know. Maybe that sets something else up, and we'll see. I mean, obviously, our critique is based on what we think, based on what we know. But there could be something else that they have planned. We'll go, okay, we didn't think about that. That makes more sense than we gave it credit for. But I cannot conjure it up at the moment.
Can I tell you, though, I mean, again, I'm not going to go back to last week, but, the line about, or whenever it was 2 weeks ago, whatever it was about the father line, they could have done other lines that didn't involve the lay you dead next to your father kind of thing. I mean, there could have been an acknowledgement. Your father was nothing but a glorified tag team wrestler. What are we talking about? Tribal chief. He couldn't even get to the mid card. I mean, there's other insults that could have landed there. This is a try hard. This is turning try hardy.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable assessment there. Jack Grief says, I've heard the phrase, never call your opponent old, because if they beat you, in some cases they will beat you, it makes you look like an idiot. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
As long as the opponent doesn't get self-conscious about being called old and throw a hissy fit.
That's true, yep. All right. Darrell says, we don't want to hear, nor should we have Punk come to Mania thinking he's untouchable and on a high. We need this to be a babyface who knows he's trying to fight against time, and these young guys are coming for him. I mean, they got a few weeks to tie all this together. Who's the young guy?
Roman isn't that young. I mean, like, if this was Obafemi, then sure. But, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
This would be like Wade and I fighting it out. It's like we're two old guys going at it. Nothing's interesting about it.
Derek Mitchell says, tonight's interaction with Punk and Roman didn't do anything for me, but it makes me want to see Roman kick Punk's ass and take the title. His next appearance is March 23rd Raw, 1 week away, then March 30th Raw, and then New York MSG. So there will be more of this in some form or fashion. South Division 3 adds, Reigns looks like the better athlete, but have his matches been great recently? They're very slow moving and feel like you can be on your phone half paying attention until the final third of the match. All right.
Well, that's true. But I think that, listen, if you listen to Nikki's Club, what was it, 2 weeks ago, Wade, I watched Elimination Chamber with some friends who were just popping into the show. They are familiar with wrestling, but definitely not familiar with the active happenings going on in WWE right now. They were taken aback, I will say this, by Punk being the champion when they saw his physicality versus Finn Balor's. Now, obviously, it wasn't like a bashing kind of thing, but it was like, that's the champion. Roman doesn't have that issue. Roman also, yes, he has altered his wrestling in a way that does feel epic in his matches. Some would say boring. Sure, there's a line that's teetered in between all that. The problem is Punk hasn't really altered his wrestling. Therefore, things that used to be faster or crisper aren't right now. And that's okay. I say this without judgment. Nikki ain't doing, running, sprints down my street. It happens. It's a natural thing. He's in excellent shape for a man, but for a world champion wrestler, it doesn't fit necessarily, which is why I want him to embrace the brawling thing more.
All right. Yeah. Dougie Dog says, as a Laps fan, I didn't know what I was supposed to do with the bit Roman told Punk that the office didn't trust him to sell enough tickets to headline the European tour. I mean, that was a little bit outside of storyline, but that is just a factual statement framed how Roman wanted to frame it as an insult, that you can't even headline the European tour. People don't know a lot about that. It's just sort of something that happened in Europe. People think, I don't really know what that means, but it sounds like an insult. Punk's walking around with a world title. He's headlining WrestleMania. What do you mean he can't headline? So it's more, but people go, but Roman's trying to get in Punk's head about something.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's what it read to me.
I mean, Roman could have said in your vaunted long title reign that you can't stop talking about, you never headlined a pay-per-view unless you were against John Cena or The Rock, which is true. He was always on the undercard unless you had Cena or Rock carrying him. Right. But he didn't go there, and I mean, he could. I don't know if it's not at the tip of their tongues or they just don't really want to mention that. Because, there are some things they are leaving out that they could include. Yeah. So, okay. One or two other comments, and we'll get to Rude Dog, who is going to join us here. Intentional rounding on the AJ Lee thing. The AJ comment wasn't an insult per se. It's a compliment even. But Punk and AJ's marriage is so in canon that you'd think he'd react in a Will Smith, keep that wasting time out of your open mouth way. Will Smith and Punk. There's a comparison.
Well, it's not far off, actually. I quite like it.
I know. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very on the nose.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Sadler Version 3 says, I think it was weird for Punk to snap immediately. Roman should have beat on that same drum, then said something super offensive about his age to finally make Punk snap at the end. Yeah, if he had built up kind of bang, bang, bang. But I mean, there's places Roman's not going to go, Nick. He's not going to go, hey, how many GTSs have shown light? How many times have announcers had to cover for you when, you come up short on a move and the wrestler is left having to sell for you? Like, they're not doing hack crap like that. They're not going to go that far.
Listen, I think that a more effective way of saying it might have been something along the lines of, yeah, you're finally getting to, main event WrestleMania, finally, but at your old age, the one time you're going to get it is you're going to be pinned looking up at the lights or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. I wish there was a match implication to it, not just you're old. Okay. What do you do with that?
Yeah. I mean,
it was more of a threat of this, your dream is about to be ruined and it's tied to this. That works more for me. There's a framing issue there.
Yeah. Your fan should be more worried when you hit a GTS that your knee is going to crack in half more than my skull. Refine something like that. Something totally. Where it's in the canon of the match. You're old. Your finishing move is going to hurt you more than it hurts me. Something like that. They could have done kind of a callback to.
Let me tell you what I'm tired of. I'm tired of hearing about that podcast from a million years ago. I'm tired of hearing about part-timing stuff. I'm tired of hearing about using insults of dead wrestlers. This is really again, this is not the greatest hits we're wheeling out for this, but we're certainly wheeling out the most frequent, tropes that we know of. And I don't think any of them are particularly good. But I say that to say there is still a chemistry that seems to be special about, which is interesting considering they were literally in a match together at last year's WrestleMania. There is something here. Mm-hmm. I just wish they would just leverage it a little bit more in a more targeted way that was more focused towards a wrestling match, epic main event. I think they can get there.
Kavanti Small says, I'm surprised Punk didn't call out Roman about his matches consisting of 100 Superman punches and spears with very little interesting things in between.
See, I don't like that. I don't agree with that comment.
Yep.
I think
Go
that's
ahead,
like
Nick, yeah.
we're not gonna like that's the meta aspect of the wrestling argument. We're not doing that. I mean, the thing should be who's gonna win this match and at what level. That's what it needs to be.
Yep. I don't think you want to go into winning doesn't count.
The entertainment component. Yeah.
Yeah. Winning doesn't count unless you're entertaining doing it on a star rating scale with a variety of moves. Like what Matt, I mean, Roman Reigns has, I mean, it's not wrong that like the first 2/3 of his matches are a slow build and a lot of, I mean, it does seem like he's like there's an ongoing bet. How much crowd heat can you get by taking no bumps and doing no more than 3 moves and spending half your time at ringside? And Roman's like, I'll take that challenge. And he goes and he makes it work. He does, but we don't want Punk it's going, all you do are 3 moves, 100 Superman punches, and then you take it a step further and it's like half of them don't come close and we got to decide whether we sell them or not. Some people want that. That would be awful. And I'd be ranting about that still from the beginning of the show till a half hour in if they had done that. They're smarter than that. These two are smart. We can sit here and critique and go, that didn't land, or I don't know what they're doing. But they're smarter than that hack stuff. They're not going to do that. And so they're not going to critique the move set. But I think there's a nuance to go, but Phil, I'm more worried you're going to pull a hamstring or crack your knee open on my head more than I'm worried about your GTS knocking me out. Like, you can talk about the effectiveness of the moves. That's storyline, and that can work. And they're not going there, and that's a choice. Maybe they haven't thought of it, or maybe they think, well, we don't really want to have people think Punk's finishing move isn't rock solid. I mean, that could be something where Punk goes, if I got 3 vetoes, that's one of them. You know what I mean? Like when they're kind of working out what they're going to say. Yeah. So, okay, let's bring keep going, chat. We'll keep an eye on you. Super chats will obviously got our attention in the crowd of comments to guarantee you a spot on the show. But let's bring Rude Dog into the conversation. We have a lot more to cover on this Raw. Rude Dog, good to see you. How's it going?
Hi, Wade. Hi, Nick. Good to talk to you. So I think Punk and AJ both need to be heels going into WrestleMania. Like, I mean, Punk, he got, his cheers coming out, but then once the dust settled and it was jabs back and forth between Reigns and Punk, like, there was definitely more people behind Reigns than Punk. And, I don't really get the whole old thing, but whatever. If it's going to drive Punk crazy, then go for it. And AJ, like, she's so unbecoming. Like, I used to like her 10 years ago. Like, but she just is coming out as the same character and is just off-putting to me. Like, to me, they would seem like a great heel couple. What do you think?
Someday, maybe, Nick.
Well, I think actually, if you Rude Dog, I'm not a fan of AJ Lee's comeback in the least. In fact, there has been absolutely zero that I have enjoyed about it until tonight. I actually thought it was very interesting that she had much better chemistry in the ring, according to me, with Bayley than she has Becky Lynch. I thought it was this match was so much better, head and shoulders better, that I was like, well, wait a minute. Why are we not going in that direction? Why are we still stuck in this Becky Lynch storyline that and this is even before the attack happened. I've said, like, it's just so obvious we're getting back to WrestleMania with that match, when really I thought AJ just seemed to have such just better choreographed chemistry with Bayley. So it makes me wonder if there's not more there. It's just that for whatever reason, her style with Becky's just lends itself to not being all that dynamic. And it's definitely not dynamic for me. If they were heels, it would work. I think they really need to lean in on the hypocritical elements of their personalities. Is there a next chapter for Punk as a heel? That's what it is. I mean, if there is a component of a heel that really works, it's a heel that still believes and tells the truth. And we all know the truth here is that CM Punk is hypocritical. And it's something that everyone has moved on from, but it's been there since his comeback. If they were to lean in on that and have him be that further part-timer, the one who is a crybaby and all that other kind of stuff without making it cartoonish, I mean, there's a real there. I would go with one thing I would say, Rude Dog, is a choice has to be made with AJ Lee on how long this comeback is going to be. I don't get the feeling that a year from now she'll still be in the ring, or if she is, she's not going to be a week in, week out type performer. I think it's I wouldn't be surprised, and you've heard me say this on Nikki's Club, if the stipulation at WrestleMania is a retirement match with those women.
Interesting. Yeah, they're playing up
I
the
mean, and
ages
quite
of,
frankly,
yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if either one lost. I would not be surprised if we're actually in the last chapter of Becky Lynch's active career. And I certainly wouldn't be surprised if AJ Lee was like, all right, I had this last run. This was fun. I would have thought she would have been in the ring with more people if that was the case. But I think we're at endgame for one of them.
Cole was bringing up Bayley. This could be her last chance to be at WrestleMania. If she doesn't make it, this could be it. So they're playing that up with that era of call-ups. But I do like Rude Dog's scenario of AJ Lee and CM Punk as heels. I mean, I think the two of them together, whether they want to admit it or not, because I'm sure they think they are charming, would be amazing heels. And I don't think they'd have to change too much about their act, other than the context of who's standing opposite of them. And not playing, not asking, isn't it great to be alive in this city? Getting the,
I guess I'm actually not hungry for them to be heels. I don't know.
Why not? I'm not talking about hunger. I'm talking about effectiveness.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess it wouldn't be the same character by a long shot, but it would read a little to Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins to me.
But they haven't done much, Yeah.
No,
they didn't do a
I
lot.
think it's still there. I still think it's there, Wade.
Yeah. All right. Well, Rude Dog, back to you.
All right. Well, you brought up Seth Rollins. So he came out again with his parade of masked men, and they even had a graphic of Seth Rollins as a mask. What is he doing? Like, I mean, he bailed out of the ring as soon as possible, even though he had all of his masked men with him, with Obafemi and Brock Lesnar. So what's going on with Seth Rollins?
Nick, let's do it. Let's talk about Seth and his.
I assume he's not physically cleared to do anything physical, is what my assumption would be. I know nothing, but I think it's. Listen, I liked the tease of him versus Brock Lesnar, and they even had me there for a second thinking like, oh, this will be the WrestleMania rematch, because they did that at 35. I don't find Seth. I think a lot of people are tired of Seth Rollins, and I don't think it's because they don't think he's a great performer, but he's been so consistently on TV for so many years. There is we're in this again. He's never, I don't think, become a special attraction that Roman Reigns is. So I think I would just get the sense that we're waiting to see if we're going to be able to do Seth versus Braun Breaker at WrestleMania. And given what we saw happen with Lesnar and Obafemi, I would say that we're probably moving more in that direction. I know nothing, but that we took Brock Lesnar off the table as being a possible opponent for Seth Rollins. I think it means that there is someone for him. And it makes sense, especially with his line about the Vision being, something that he created, that he wants to be the one to destroy. And we know it's not going to be Logan Paul and Austin Theory, because they're going to be going against the Usos. So I would assume that Breaker is trending, in an ability to return.
So either Seth and Breaker aren't cleared, or they just don't want to rush them, or they both will be cleared, or they're hoping, that one gets cleared. I think with Brock and Oba, Seth could just be the guy who helps Oba beat Lesnar, which I'm not crazy about. But, they're all three standing in the ring. You want to give Oba the win, but do you want Lesnar to lose, or do you want to save Braun Breaker as the guy who beats Lesnar as, in some sort of big moment for them? So you could do that. I'm not voting for it, but the scenario in the ring, I think, puts that in play.
Yeah, I mean, I actually assume Obafemi is going to win. I think, yes, it makes sense that you want to keep Lesnar strong, but I don't know that there's this great ceremonial loss to Braun Breaker that he gets. That I don't think Breaker gets a whole lot, quite frankly, from beating Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is not unbeatable. We know that. Seth Rollins beat him at WrestleMania in like 5 minutes. I mean, this is not. This is that there's a flaw in there. I know we're trying to recreate 2014 with when he beat down John Cena, but I think Obafemi being the one to get the rub makes great sense. I don't know how you have Obafemi lose. I just don't.
All right, Rude Dog, you want to follow up on that or bring up anything else?
Well, another part of that segment, I just want to shout out Paul Heyman. I always love it when he comes out completely disheveled after getting beat up priorly. So I love that he's keeping up with that. So,
What, Nick? What'd you think of Paul Heyman?
I thought that looked a little too real to be makeup, quite frankly, and I wonder how much honestly of method acting was put into this thing.
Like, elaborate.
No, what am I speaking Swahili, Wade? I mean, like, I think he's like
he punched himself in the eye. Like what?
I don't know. You might have.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, that bruise looked like better than any
look
makeup.
Didn't look like makeup.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Heyman was great. I mean, he was broken. He was selling. You know, like Hangman Page and MJF aren't going to. I mean, I know Heyman's 60, but like after their 46-minute orgy of violence last night, you know, I mean, they're not going to be selling that for 3 weeks. Like Heyman is selling that beatdown. But you know, it's Heyman. He's not an athlete. He's, you know, whatever. I mean, I shouldn't really compare them, but that was really good. I mean, I thought Heyman. I like when Heyman shows different range because he has it. You know, I mean, we've seen it going back to his 80s work on Pro Wrestling This Week, the syndicated show with Joe Pedicino and Gordon Soley, and his quick wit and improvisational skills, and then what he did in the Dangerous Alliance with Original Midnight Express in the AWA and Wildfire Tommy Rich, and then obviously what he did in WCW and on and on. I mean, he's had all these different personas. He hasn't lost any of that skill set. When he breaks from character and does like a Hall of Fame speech or the fleeting glimpse we got into the the roast, you know, like there's so much more that he can do, but he reins it in. He knows, you know, less is more. I've got a character, I play it. But this was him showing some. I don't know how it plays outside of pro wrestling. I'm not. I can't say, oh, he'd be great, you know, drama actor on TV. But in a pro wrestling, I'm not saying yes or no. It's just the context was what it needed to be. He's playing to a large audience and TV at the same time in pro wrestling, but it was really good. And it felt like something broke. And when he did the lines that led to FAFO, F around, find out, and then all of a sudden it's F around, F5. And then Lesnar comes out and the crowd's, ooh. You know, that was really well done. And Heyman was so beat down that it made it seem like Lesnar's going to be even more upset because of how much Seth did to him. But then he had Alba come out and Brock flipped. You know, he in Brock, by the way, I've always thought Brock, going back to his rookie year, underrated on the microphone, natural body language wise. He just didn't like to travel, didn't like the locker room culture, but he was a natural in ways that go beyond just being a beast in the ring. And he showed it here. He hit exactly the right tone for, holy shit, that guy is a physical match to me, and I've never seen anybody that I felt was a physical match, and he's half my age, you know, or 20 years younger.
Right.
Wow. And he didn't cartoonize it, you know, like, but it was like, okay, recalibration time. I haven't, you know, this guy is staring me down. Yeah, I thought that was really good. Nick, what'd you think?
No, I totally agree. I think I liked everything about the segment. I thought I liked how Lesnar came across. You know, there is the concern, right, that some of this could have been saved for WrestleMania, like to have now Lesnar be put on his back. I mean, okay, so we've seen that. You know, how effective is it if Obafemi wins again? I'm sure it's effective, but to what degree? Especially when we know he can lift him as high as he did, and you know, for that power bomb. And but I think it's still an interesting match. again, you get into kind of a little bit of the immediacy to, well, who wins? And, I don't know that you have a scenario where Brock Lesnar can win and have it not be, just get away with it, quite honestly. I think with so much riding on Obafemi being a future star, I just don't know that there's a tolerance for Brock Lesnar winning that. But I digress. I think.
Yeah, I can't think of. I'll just say before you digress, I can't think of a way that Oba doesn't beat Lesnar and it doesn't hurt him and set him back. But I think he could also recover. I mean, I don't. If there's ways to tell stories for match finishes that we don't think about in a conventional sense, that there's a story they tell, but I don't know what that is. But I'm not thinking full time about it. It's just like I'm thinking full time about a lot of things. But if you're the people in charge of Oba and Brock, you're thinking of everything, and you're playing all these. You have so many considerations, but. That's where I do fear, Seth will, come out and threaten Heyman. Lesnar turns his back. Boom. That gives Oba a little bit of an opening, and the match is over 10 seconds later.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, but go ahead, Nick. I know
No, I mean, but am I more excited now for Brock Lesnar's match at WrestleMania than I was 3 hours ago? Absolutely. And I think that's the good news. That's a match I suddenly want to see.
Yep. Kavanti Smiles, by the way, in the chat, just says WrestleMania season's been an uninspired slog for the most part so far, Nick. Putting heat on the Lesnar-Oba match with a big move was desperately needed.
I agree, totally. I think it felt like the first time something really exciting and dynamic was happening leading into WrestleMania that also felt new. But I guess what I'm saying is, quite honestly, I wonder if there was a scenario, and I'm not a wrestler, so I'm trying, if I talk about them like in action figure terms, that he lifted Lesnar up and then dumped him without actually leaving him laying, and just rather having Lesnar just scurry on his ass and out of the ring. I think something like that might have been more effective to show that Lesnar can be overpowered without the ability of actually showing the visual pin. I think that took away from it.
The Derek Mitchell says Oba powerbombs Brock and stands his feet on his chest. What's next at Mania?
Well, that's the point, Derek. Thank you. I always enjoy your commentary. I think they gave away maybe a beat too much.
Yeah. Tommy McLaughlin, welcome to the chat, says if Oba wins, it won't hurt Brock.
Totally agree.
Brock can lose. Tommy McLaughlin said, would Brock do the job though? Yeah, Brock's a pin me and pay me guy.
Definitely.
Key is it does Paul Heyman say it's the right thing to do, and then Brock will do. I'll do anything Paul says. I mean, I do think there's maybe I'm over. I mean, they've revealed through interviews and stuff there is a dynamic there of trust, mutual trust that's been built up. I mean, of course,
we know Lesnar didn't lose to Omos at WrestleMania all those years ago, but this is someone who they know is a surefire thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Obafemi's.
Oh, I didn't even see this comment.
Yeah, Delj says, wasn't this the same build they did with Omos and Brock? Yeah.
Not the same.
No. And Kavanti Small says, Brock can definitely take a loss and then disappear for 6 months. He'll be okay. Back to Omos versus Obafemi. I think the average viewer knows Omos is a freak show and Obafemi is being portrayed as a future top tier star. And they both are fine in wrestling, but they're being featured differently or they present differently. And Obafemi is more than Omos. I get just sort of a casual viewer thinking, oh, it's the second coming of him, but I think we've seen enough already, with what, they've had him do so far, not just NXT, but even main roster proper. He's more than that. Yeah. Okay. Root Dog, we lost his picture. I don't know if we lost his internet. He was a little shaky at one point. Root Dog, you there or not? Call us back if you can hear us. And we'll go from there. Just real quick, Nick. Obafemi beats Brock Lesnar. Then what? Let's say that happens at WrestleMania. Not worried about Lesnar, but is that too much too soon for Oba? Do you just have to go? Well, he beat Lesnar. Now he has to go XYZ after who? Like what's next for him if he does that?
I mean, I don't. No one is jumping off the page to me about who Obafemi's immediate next feud would be, but I don't think it's too much too soon. I think Brock Lesnar is a major, beating him is a major, gem for him to have. But I also think it's not so high up that coming down into a lesser feud seems like this drastic drop off. I think he can have a up and down type of path, to world championship status. I don't think he should be rushed to a world championship feud. I think that might be too fast, personally, for me. But not in the way of, let me just be clear. I don't think I often hate how long it takes. Like, I think Braun Breaker, they took too much time with.
Interesting.
I just think, I don't know that this needs to happen immediately with Obafemi, because he is so strong. He is so dominant. I kind of like for him the trajectory of that Brock Lesnar went on, which was he debuted around WrestleMania. He was immediately dominant. There was some, he won the King of the Ring, but then he was back down a little before he ultimately won the championship by SummerSlam. A 6-month trajectory and knowing that you're going to land there in the booking works. I think, and I remember at the time thinking Brock Lesnar is, showing his ass too much, in some of these matches, and thinking that was a mistake. But, it's the Goldberg thing. You can't have someone be untouchably dominant and then have that be sustainable forever if you're presenting it as they are absolutely unbeatable, unless you're going to actually just embrace them as special attractions. And if that's the case, then just do that with him.
Yeah, I think they want more from Oba than a special attraction gimmick or presentation over time. And that means he has to be vulnerable against heels who are smaller than him, or he needs to turn heel, and then that's a challenge. And part of the fun of watching wrestling is the journey wrestlers go on and how different wrestlers are. Like Hulk Hogan was bigger than almost every heel opponent, obviously not Andre, but just about everybody else. He was physically bigger then and he made it work. But boy, I mean, it's a challenge. It is a challenge. I mean, if Obafemi is a top babyface for you, and he's Brock Lesnar's physically imposing in the Brock Lesnar physically imposing category, you got to stack some. You got to get some big heels who are threats too. That's where you got to save Gunther for a WrestleMania match, not a transitional feud. So yeah, I mean, well, that's a problem for them and a discussion for another day. Rudog jumped back in with better internet. Let's just bring him back. Rudog, I assume you followed most of what we said. Do you have any follow-up, or you want to change topics?
I followed most of it, and I agree. But talking about WrestleMania, new topic. What do you think about the 31.6% off sale they had today? That seems like Kmart blue light special type clearance sale crap, and for the people that already spent hundreds or thousands of dollars, that can make them very happy.
We're losing your internet. We're losing your audio again. You're real cheesy, Doug.
I'll just say goodbye.
Okay, we got your question though. Thanks. Bye. Always good to hear from Rudog, except when he's that choppy. But we still got the question there. Yeah, I mean, it is March 16th, and it's not often a WWE show lands on Austin 316 Day. They did offer discounts on merchandise and something else also, so it didn't feel like we're desperate to sell WrestleMania tickets. It almost felt like we're obligated to because it's 316 Day. So everything is that far off, including, you won't believe this, WrestleMania tickets, but this day only. But Nick, if you paid $2,000 for a seat, now you're doing calculations.
I'd have a problem.
I could have had them for $1,300. I mean,
yeah, it reads desperate. It does. I mean, but what are they supposed to do? Not acknowledge they have a problem and do nothing about it? I mean, it's just what it is. Yeah, it's desperate.
And that is the reality. WWE doesn't offer a 30-day price guarantee on the price you pay. Some are buying on the secondary market. They're paying a lot more. I mean, that's the way it works. But people who got tickets already had
guaranteed seats. You got it.
They got to pick the seat they wanted, and
now
it's leftovers. It's someone else's. It's the tickets somebody else didn't want, and that's the only way you can look at it.
Yeah, and honestly, for anybody that is frustrated and annoyed with that, you can't live your life like that. I mean, there's going to be sales that you hit and other sales that you don't in life. Just move on.
Yeah. Super chat from Derek Mitchell. Thank you. Very generous. Says, happy 316 Day. I can't believe it's been 30 years since Austin 316 was born at 1996 King of the Ring. He didn't have a long career. Well, he had a long career, just not a Stone Cold. He worked many, as you know, Derek, you can probably name the date in all the territories, but he burned as bright as anyone ever. I'd compare his run to Gale Sayers, Jim Brown, and Barry Sanders. Nick, rank those for us.
I literally have no idea who Gale Sayers is. I know who Barry Sanders and Jim Brown are, but
oh, okay. Well, good. I didn't know you would.
Well, okay.
Why? I mean, what? I mean, why?
What is this super chat? How did these people jump in here with that? I'm learning about YouTube.
There's a button you can push, and then
okay.
And then you get a colorful thing, and you get a star next to your name, and a good host will promise you priority, and it's a nice way.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's super serve Derek then a little about Austin 316. I think, it's so funny it is funny that you look back on it and you think that it was shorter, right? In retrospect than we knew a John Cena career, for example. But it's impossible not to think that, it mattered the most. Here's an example. I was just talking about this the other day of when you think of the Scream movies, which is like the #1 movie in the country and doing big box office business right now. Mm-hmm. When you think of that franchise, you think of Drew Barrymore. She was in the movie for 15 minutes that came out 30 years ago. And yet she's still the biggest moment of 7 films later. And, that's what it's about. It's about impact. It's about maximizing that moment. And that's what he did. I mean, what's interesting too, I'm sure you can too, Wade, like visually go right back to June 96 when he gave that promo. And then remember, by August, he was still on the WrestleMania pre-show fighting Yokozuna. I mean, this wasn't like it burned so hot immediately. Like they had to.
It was house shows with Savio. It was house shows with Savio. And
I know.
Like a double turn.
It was Bret Hart. It was Bret Hart coming back that actually like aligned him in the right direction. So, but once that hit, I mean, there was, it was amazing. But the one thing I will say about Steve Austin, though, there is such a forgotten bit there of how tired people did get of him, which is why I resent when people go on the whole they should have never turned him heel thing and how they've actually gotten him to be on that train when he was the one who wanted to turn heel anyway. Folks were indeed tired of him, Wade. You remember this. Like he was not nearly as fresh come the year 2001. He wasn't. And
he was going through a lot. I mean, just the knee injury or the neck injury especially, but he was really, 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 really stressed out. And he uses euphemisms for how hard he was going and what he was doing to stay moving that fast and keeping that schedule up. And the pressure to make money and stay healthy and keep his marriages alive and deal with the politics of The Rock and Paul Levesque. And, movie deals at WWE was someone filtered to the front office of WWE, and then he wasn't told about it because Vince didn't want him to get taken off the road because he was too important to the comeback against WWE and the big boom the big boom in business. There's so much going on with him. Had that Owen Hart thing, the paralysis neck injury not happened, who knows? But I think a lot of what it did, I want to get to full circle to your point. A lot of why people were not as high on Austin during that stage was because Austin wasn't who he would have been had he not had setbacks with his body failing him or injuries, and that got to him, and it made him different. I think there was less of a joy to his performance and more of a just white knuckling, trying to make money while he could and not end up crippled.
Right. I hear you. I hear you. And there's, listen, I was like, how old was I? 15 when this was happening. So I was looking at a different lens of life at the time, but I still say it was just so redundant week in, week out. And just, it was, he deserved to switch it up. And that heel run was not the creative failure that, it is looked at. One other thing. So Tommy McLaughlin has put in the chat, I'm so glad Austin ditched the ringmaster thing. I'm going to say something that is so controversial. I never understood. And I still, in all these years later, don't understand. And no, Wade, put your eyebrows down when I talk to you. Why it was such a big deal that his name was the ringmaster, Steve Austin. He was not like a circus ringmaster. I mean, I actually remember thinking about it as the title. It was like the ring, like the best in the world at wrestling. And so I just feel like these are just lines that people say about Steve Austin because that's what everyone has accepted as the truth. Yes, it was good that he moved away from being the $1 million champion. Okay. Yes, it was good that he adopted other things, but that ringmaster name was not bad. He didn't come out in a top hat. He didn't come out with, a tuxedo. This is dumb.
No, I mean, fair enough. I think the full context matters, which is maybe you could argue Steve Austin was the most effective main event promo in history in terms of what he did to connect with that audience and break barriers and fit that attitude era. I mean, you couldn't walk down the street without people wearing 316 t-shirts at malls and parades and outdoor festivals. So he was amazing on the microphone, and Vince McMahon had no clue. He assigned a tired, staid, cliche-ridden, going through the motions Ted DiBiase to speak for him. And anybody who had watched him as stunning Steve Austin, or the little bit he did in ECW, knew there was something special there on the microphone. So the ringmaster was kind of draw a gimmick out of a hat that had been, pre-trademarked. And, he's going to be the guy who's really good at wrestling. So he's going to be black boots, black trunks, but he doesn't have a personality, and we have to hide that he has a Southern accent because Vince had a thing against that. So it's the totality of the context of the gimmick, and not looking at it and going, look what we have here. There's things to accentuate. Instead, it was like sort of, muted, and we're running from things that turned out to be actually the marketable aspect of it.
No, I get all of that. I just mean it's so reductive to just say, the ringmaster thing. Well, no, it was the ringmaster. Like I said, he was not a carnival ringmaster. Like that's not.
Yeah, but do people? I mean, that I never.
Yeah, no, that's the insinuation. Wait, that's 100% the insinuation for people who are, and I'm not saying this the person in the chat right now. I'm saying that there's like this rewriting of history, this Mandela effect. I think I'm losing power over here. Oh, no. The storm. There's like a huge storm going on over here. There's like this thing that like this Mandela effect. I think that people think he was out there being this cartoonish character.
Okay. Yeah, it's never crossed my mind, and I've never had a conversation where I felt that was the argument being made against it. The ringmaster, in and of itself, the name and it being like a circus thing, I've never heard that be an argument, and it would be silly. But maybe I just hang out in different circles than you, and with smarter, better. Maybe. Smarter fans. Yeah. Sadler Vision 3 says Austin retiring so early sucked for everyone, but it was probably the best. For the best, his character stayed fresh for all those years, and fans never got burned out on him like Hogan, Cena, Triple H, Rock, etc. But it's a whole other podcast. What would have happened to Steve Austin?
Wait. To put that back up again.
Yeah.
Fans never got burned out on him. Like that is not true. I'm sorry. I'm literally sorry to tell you. Go back and listen. Go to the PWTorch archive. I would 1,000% guarantee you have Wade Keller, Bruce Mitchell, Pat McNeil, everyone from that era saying that there was desperate changes needed to that character. I would bet my life on it. Wade, you're muted.
Indeed, I am. So there you go, Sadler. Take that. Derek Mitchell says, thanks, Wade and Nick, for adding context. I've been an Austin fan from day one, USWA, WCW, and his brief ECW stint. Ringmaster to Stone Cold, which was multiple layered in the beginning, and his heel turn. Yeah.
I got to tell you this, Wade. You know what I did last year? I went on a deep dive, and it was, into the ECW archives to watch the Steve Austin run.
Oh, fun.
Wow, was that special. That really was. I never, I wasn't watching ECW. I would dip in and out of ECW because, I'm from like the Trenton, New Jersey area. This was the hotbed of it, but it was aired so infrequently and so what's the word I'm looking for? It was never on the same time slot. Like it just kept moving like all over the place. And I remember more reading about the Steve Austin run from the magazines because it was so prominently featured in the Bill Apter magazines and whatnot. But to go back and watch it, his promos were, outrageous. They were excellent. I just thought I never saw that, but it was really, really spectacular.
Yeah, he had something to prove. He had something to prove. Yeah. Durrell says, Nick, when he was called the Ringmaster, was he ever treated as the best in the ring? When he was talked about by Vince, who was the announcer, was he talked about that way? No, he was talked about less than. Yeah,
I actually don't agree with that. I actually do think he was presented as. So I think he wasn't. He was presented as wrestlers at the time were presented, which was, yes, it was like the cartoonish, ironic best in the world, but he had to cheat to win and had, someone speak for him. I'm not saying it was a perfect gimmick. I'm just saying the name Ringmaster was not as damning as other components that were given to him.
Fair. Yeah. Fair enough. By the way, well, actually, we'll throw intentional rounding says let's not forget the influence his brief ECW run had, which gave him the freedom to be more real promo wise. I don't know if Paul Heyman didn't give Austin that freedom to
totally
do that, and obviously Austin brought it. He didn't need a Heyman pep talk, but Heyman probably gave him one. I don't know if Austin, I don't know if we would have gotten Stone Cold.
So I started watching WCW in 1994 when Sherry Martel jumped over there. That was my catalyst to start watching it. And Steve Austin at that time in WCW, there was nothing memorable to me about his promos. He was that U.S. champion level, feuding with the likes of Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Rick Steamboat and all those. And I thought it was bland. He didn't stick out to me. Now to go back and then, as I've come to learn, look at the Hollywood Blondes and all that, and that there was other elements of him that just predated me, I would have never known. But to see the ECW stuff, I mean, that's why when all I knew Steve Austin to be in WWF from his WCW run, I mean, he wouldn't have stuck out to me either if all I saw was what I saw. But, God knows I was wrong.
So we don't forget to do it. Let's just bring this up because it's in the chat. JC Scooby says Danhausen is TV gold. How you digging Danhausen?
I think first of all, I didn't have a problem with his debut, which everyone else did. I thought listen, I actually think there's some components of the WWE presentation that needs some lightening and needs a little mixing up. And I thought it was so obviously quirky and stupid that it was going to lead to something, but he's very present, like in the eyes. I don't know how else to describe it. He's appeared on my TikTok algorithm even before watching these most recent in-ring segments. And to watch him interacting with fans, he's got that thing that you can't really describe of like this. I could see why he got signed. I mean, based on personality. Sure. I mean, if you find him, there was someone that went to him for like an autograph signing, and they had like the Meta glasses on or whatever they're called. And he was so tuned in. I mean, Wade, he was so tuned in to the fan. I mean, it was pretty impressive. So to have him translate, the lights are on in this guy's eyes. The lights are on and he's very present. I think he's a hit. I would rather watch him all day at this point than, R-Truth.
Oh,
I think the comedy is just excellent.
Danhausen is like my sense of humor. There's a range, but his deadpan wit is, it's just, I don't even know how to quite categorize it, but it's not like laugh out loud. It's just like he is really good.
He's
at
entertaining.
Being who he is. He's entertaining, and the understate like it's weird to say because he's just so like over the top in terms of his appearance, but like just the posture. It's just kind of hunched over, and he's kind of is diminutive in his presentation. It's almost like, I'll use a 70s detective analogy, Columbo, like catches you off guard. He wears a raincoat, looks disheveled, but he's smarter than you. And the criminals who think they got this schlub driving this old car fooled, they don't understand. He's paying attention to everything. And Danhausen is out there and he's just kind of, hey, doing his voice thing, but he's encroaching on people's gimmicks in a kind of a sleazy con artist way that's super endearing, and he recovers quickly from being rebuffed. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to deconstruct. I mean, I'm like, it'd be fun to try to deconstruct his character and get into why it lands with so many people, but it's good. Derek Mitchell says there's so many people that didn't like Danhausen's debut at the Chamber, but I've enjoyed him every week he's been on TV. By the way, I think most of the concern with Danhausen's debut was, does WWE get him, or is this a sign they don't? And now we've seen a couple weeks of evidence they get him, and he is better backstage in a small setting, and that's where he is now. Great. But when they had him come out with without any other context, I think there was just worry. Is WWE going to understand he's effective in small bits backstage? Or are they going to turn him into something that he's not? And that, I think that was most of the concern. And also, it's not good that I mean, it's like his city in a way, but if you debut somebody where WWE puts a big production behind him, and then a bunch of people who don't know who he is go, what is this guy? And you resent it. You think, oh, WWE's shoving him down our throat. Then it's like, wait, is that really the best way to introduce him? Or is it would it have been better to have him introduced by lurking and people go, like for 4 weeks on TV, he's just in the back like Levesque likes to, like Austin Theory is lingering in the back. It would have been better to introduce him in a more subtle way and have him kind of creep up on people. And that would have been my vote, but he's fine either way, Nick.
Yeah, I think it worked fine. I mean, he came out of a box. I mean, this wasn't exactly like he ruined like some big moment that should, as a fan, you were watching going like, oh my gosh, this should have been the Chris Jericho return. I mean, it was a box. It was a box.
Yep. Okay. Derek Mitchell says Danhausen, Peter Falk. Perfect analogy if you're old enough to remember Columbo. It's worth watching. Not the 80s Columbos. They're fine. They're okay. The 70s Columbos. That's just vintage, like really good. The guest stars.
Perry Mason.
It's fine. I mean, Perry Mason's good. I'm not going to be anti-Perry, but
I didn't
Columbo,
know. I wasn't looking for your approval. It's fine. Okay, I'm telling you, I prefer Perry Mason.
Well, now you have
my apologies.
No, you're insane. No, what I'm saying is Perry Mason's fine, but Columbo is next level. And what I keep trying to say is the guest stars are like Johnny Cash episode. It's just like, I mean, like the different people they brought on in the windows into the way eccentric people who thought they could get away with anything lived. It's timeless. It's really good show. Okay. A couple other things on Danhausen, then we have a super chat again from Derek. Tommy McLaughlin says, dude moves merch. So that seems to be a strong metric for sure. MD87 Punk says, I'm a Fanhausen. Yes. Let's see. Oh, here's one. Jack Reef says Danhausen got me when he first met Miz, and they just panned behind Aldous, and he was grinning and not moving. Eric Moy says Danhausen is like Conan O'Brien mixed with cheesy 80s horror memes. I see that. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. I don't know if it's perfect, but I get where you're saying that. JC Scooby says Danhausen knows who he is and his character and is always aware of current events. Tommy McLaughlin,
smart.
He is. Yep. He's not playing dumb. He's also clearly not dumb. Like he's a con man, and he recovers quickly from being rebuffed, and he's always scheming for something, but he's like terribly, just like undeniably likable at the same time. Tom McLaughlin says, I saw Danhausen wrestle Simon Miller in England, I think. Totally got over. And Sadler Vision 3 goes, yeah, Danhausen got over way quicker than I expected. I was low on him, but credit where it's due. So there are. Yeah. Fun addition, selling merch, but I'll tell you what, a lot of backstage segments, people are like, I don't know if I need to pay attention. I'll have to pay attention. Danhausen comes on, you set your phone down. You stop what you're doing in the kitchen. Like you want to see all the body language and how people react to him. Every person he interacts with is going to be a fun chapter for him. I think people are like, I can't wait to see him interact with whoever. And it's not going to be main event guys a lot. I did like tonight specifically, we're just kind of generally singing his praises. Having Grayson Waller panic that he got cursed, when Kofi shoved him in the way. And he's like, no, I don't want, oh my God, I don't want to be cursed. Like, you need people to believe in it, but you don't want WWE pretending that we're supposed to believe it. But you want the heels to believe it, because there's been coincidences for people who are superstitious to think maybe there's something there, where it's more of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's so fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Derek Mitchell, some praise. You guys make great tag team hosting. Yeah, but he yelled at me when I said Perry Mason was good, and he says, I don't care about your opinion.
Well, so anything. actually, no, you didn't say it like that. Stop rewriting history.
I would never do that.
Perry Mason, the movies from the late 80s are very watchable, and there's particularly one I want everyone to go back. You know what? None of you are doing anything better than this after we hang up on this. No, I'm saying tonight, go turn on YouTube, look up Perry Mason, The Case of the Silent Singer.
Okay.
It featured a young Angela Bassett, a young Vanessa Williams. It was her first starring role after the Miss America incident. And oh God, there's another name that escapes me, but it's excellent, and the twist at the ending is phenomenal. So go back and watch it.
Good. I will take you up on it. Have you watched the 70s Columbus?
My dad used to watch it a lot. He was also a Rockford Files kind of guy.
Yeah,
James Gardner.
Yep. There's some really influential producers and directors and writers who were part of that era who went on to do really good things later on too. But yeah, Rockford Files and Columbo, I think, are highly respected shows from early 70s, and then Rockford is more late 70s into the 80s.
Yeah.
I was a big fan of those, and they I think they hold up quite well. Okay. Let's see. Nick, I'll throw to you. What do you want to bring up that we haven't yet from the show?
Well, you skipped the super chat. Can we go back to Derek?
Yes, for sure. Thank you, Nick. Derek Mitchell, another super chat. Is the WrestleMania 42 theme song Back in the Saddle by Aerosmith more or less annoying than last year's WrestleMania 41 by Travis Scott?
So I'm going to answer this in a complicated way. Fiend was obviously so annoying and probably the most annoying thing. However, there is something about it that felt Travis Scott was, particularly at that time, one of the biggest stars in the world. Something about this WrestleMania in Las Vegas. Now we're having like an Aerosmith song. Things don't feel nearly as elevated to me as they did in the run up to last year's show. There's a come down. I actually don't think I'm crazy. I'm missing a little bit of the Weeknd voice when so my favorite one. I know everyone kind of liked the 39 one, which is, oh gosh, I have it on my phone, but I preferred Save Your Tears, which was the one when they did the first real live WrestleMania at 30. That was been 37. I really liked that, but I like a little bit of the moment artist when there's someone that is really, really big, you know. Yep. But at the same time, I'm triggered by the Travis Scott, as if anyone has heard. The one that everyone liked is Less Than Zero, I guess, from 39. You know, as I've said before, I produced a concert for Travis Scott in my event planning days, and he's a seriously not good person, and seriously not good person. And one day I can offline it.
But he hangs out with Rock, Dwayne Johnson.
So I don't know anything about that. I'm telling you, he put me in a very dangerous, threatening situation. Okay. And he's done that to people I wasn't threatened physically, let me say that. But he created an environment in his concert that was dangerous. And he does that to people all over. This is not a good man. So if anybody ever wants to, you know, cameo me or Venmo me, let me know. I'll give you all the scoop.
All right. There we are. So we got the super chat in. Nick, my question stands. Anything from this show that you got something to talk about in particular?
I think Bailey. I actually think there should be serious conversations backstage today about the elevated quality of Bailey with AJ Lee. I thought that was really, really, really significant. I thought the Grande Americano segment was marred by first of all, it's just so boring, and it's not growing. There's no growth that's happening there. The wardrobe malfunction was unfortunate and uncomfortable, I think, from a watch standpoint. I don't find that stuff. I mean, I find that really, I always feel really bad when that stuff happens. The segment with the non-title women's championship match was not impressive. I didn't think anything about that was interesting. I think Liv Morgan versus Stephanie Becerra is at a point where it's going to be a fine match. It's certainly not challenging to go last, as some years you can find some, you know, twist yourself into a pretzel to convince yourself the women's match should go last. I mean, this feels below, I think, the Intercontinental Championship women's storyline in terms of importance, and I think that's a shame. But I think Liv's doing what she can with it, but it doesn't feel like this is some world title match.
What would you think of the vignette that Liv did tonight? The promo segment.
Yeah, it was good. It was different. I don't have a problem with Liv Morgan, but I'm also not like head over heels in love, you know. With it
either. I get that. The Randy Orton follow-up. Well, it was interesting. Not that it's unheard of in WrestleMania season that stuff on Raw is recapped on SmackDown and vice versa, but they really wanted. I mean, this is a co-main event, you know, or a main event to one of the nights. they wanted to let people know who don't watch SmackDown, and a lot of people watch Raw who don't watch SmackDown. Not only does Raw on Netflix have a bigger audience, but some people just watch one and not the other for various reasons, what they subscribe to or their schedule or their favorite wrestlers. So if you watch Raw now, there's a big turn. What did you think of the attention they gave it and how they produced the recap and the video package on it? And then also Cole attempting to interview Randy and Randy talking on the phone to someone and then saying, yeah, someone kind of talked some sense into me and who I really am. A lot happened on a show where Cody and Randy isn't the home base on Raw. So what do you think?
Yeah.
And what do you think of the turn too? I thought, comment on it. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you remember this, Wade, but I predicted about a month ago that was going to. I predicted 3 months ago that Drew McIntyre wasn't going to be in the World Championship match, and the chat here was having my head. Do you recall this? Nod your head.
I do a lot of podcasts, and as I get called out, sometimes I forget.
Are you kidding me?
No, well,
I'm being
Nick. I'm leading to a compliment here. If you can stop interrupting, I might get around to saying something nice. I do a lot of podcasts with a lot of people. I listen to a lot of people, and so I don't remember everything everybody said or who said it or when. But Nick, that stands out in my mind. You were right. People were hard on you.
You're so full of it. I'm going to keep interrupting because I remember doing this.
No, I generally remember it because I remember thinking, I would be okay with it if they did it.
Yeah, I remember that January podcast, and people thought I was just negative and you don't know. I was like, they're never going to put him in the World Champion. They're because you were down on Drew as being a guy for that. Well, I'm not down on Drew. I'm down on the booking of Drew. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think there was too much ground to make up for it to be a WrestleMania main event. So that was definitely. I remember saying, I don't care what anybody thinks that he deserves. They won't do it, and they didn't do it. And then I want to say it was about a month ago when people were leaning in on the it's going to be a multi-man match. If you listen to Nikki's Club, I was wrong that I said I think they're going to end up at Randy versus Cody. I think at the time I said I don't think it'll be for the title, but that match is going to happen. Okay. And I think I got that element of it wrong that it's for the title. But here's what I think. Okay, let me tell you about the segment tonight, what I didn't like. It was so obviously pre-taped. It was so obviously not live. Yeah. And I think that hurt it. I wish if they had just embraced that we got this. We tried to interview Randy earlier. This is the footage we got.
I like that. Yeah.
I think that would have been a little bit better rather than clearly having someone, try to debate a pre-tape.
We're going to have a segment for you. We were going to have a segment for you, and Randy, cut me off, and I think you should see it with your own eyes. Randy's on the phone. It's intriguing. I'm still not sure what to make of it. Corey, I want your thoughts. You haven't seen this footage yet. Boom.
I liked the grittiness of the footage. I liked the old ECW tape footage element of it. That worked for me. I just am so not confident in Randy's ability in the ring at this point. But I think from a name value standpoint, it's the best shot that they had. And I think there were a lot of people clamoring for Randy and Cody to finally have their match. I also think it's probably going to be of a lesser quality match than the WrestleMania match between Cody and Cena was last year. But I don't think it's going to be high quality. I don't think Randy Orton is this great wrestler, greatest of all time wrestler that people say he is. That's just what I think.
Yeah. I mean, Randy's rep, was... You see one big Randy match, not you've seen them all, but a little bit goes a long way. The 3.25 star specialist, that's kind of Randy's, in the star, the star rating system when it had a little bit more grounding to it. He and Cody were kind of, called that. I don't think people glorify Randy as one of the all-time great workers, but I'm a little more confident in their ability to do what Roman Reigns does, not do a lot, but tell a real story with body language. How they play off each other. He's got his signature moves that people are into. Do you think they can, in the next month, get to or even reinforce more where they are in terms of Randy being booed and Cody being cheered? Is that a journey they should try? That there's a path to get there and lean in and be confident you can get there?
I actually think they just need to be very careful about not turning Randy into such an interesting, cool heel. I think people respect Randy. I do think he's really well liked by the audience. And I think that people are going to be really excited to see him wrestle with stakes attached to it in a real way. I think they just have to be very careful that the people aren't just going to actively just cheer him so much. But I also don't think they should be so self-conscious about it. I think what they should kind of do is just focus on that the marquee element of this match, the history of them, and then just kind of run with it, and just hope for the best. I don't think they should get self-conscious about Cody. I think that they could find themselves making mistakes with Cody and building more resentment than they intend to. Just allow the history to play out, come up with an interesting story, but try not to make Randy too cool in the process.
And
if
Cody's
that
got
makes
to,
any sense.
and Cody's got to be mad. He's got to be mad in a way that doesn't feel undignified or whiny. And that's, his first promo after that turn. Cody is an emotional guy. He's willing to cry in camera, in character, and so he needs to not seem sappy and maudlin and over the top and going for too much. I mean, you're a grown man turned on you who you thought was your friend. Let's not overplay it. But he's allowed to be hurt by it. They established Friday, Randy meant a lot to him. And Randy has been on a journey where he's like, I'm in a different place than I used to be. And Randy needs to tell his story effectively. Tonight was laying the groundwork for what will be elaborated on Friday. And I think they want to pop us rating on Friday for SmackDown by teasing it on Raw for the Netflix audience.
So, I was thinking about this, and you're going to laugh because I've definitely recalled this on the previous show I used to do for you. But, for these like young lion, old lion type storylines, I always think of the pop culture feud between Lady Gaga and Madonna. And I know people I'm a big Madonna fan, so I just channeled that. And it was an interesting feud publicly that I think actually translates well to the wrestling environment. Mm-hmm. And I thought Lady Gaga did something that was so savvy back then, where I'll never forget, she won the Grammy for this song that everyone said sounds just like Madonna. And she said, I want to thank the person who inspired me and who I thought of when I was in the studio when I made this record, Whitney Houston. And she wasn't saying it for humor. She was literally, it was like a screw you to the Madonna, but it was also embracing this other person who she really did respect and the real person that she really was inspiring. And I actually think it would be funny, or not, it would be interesting if Cody took the storyline and say, yeah, you were the one who gave me legacy. You were the one who brought me here. You were the one who did all this. But I never wanted to be like you. I wanted to be like John Cena. I wanted and name people that the audience does respect and is high on right now. I wanted to be respected like AJ Styles. I wanted to do all these other people. It might be an interesting twist. That's all.
Yeah. I'm intrigued with this. I don't think they should have a defeatist attitude about how fans are going to respond. I think they should take it on as a challenge. If it fails to lead to a 90-10 pro Cody, anti-Randy thing, so be it. But don't wave the white flag on this, because I do think the support for Cody is strong enough to pull people in if Randy does his job well. And I think Randy's going to be in this to get booed. I think he knows that's his job.
Yeah, I think it was the best shot they had of having a WrestleMania Night 1 main event that seemed to matter. Mm-hmm. I think it's arguable that it's a step down from last year's main events, but maybe not. I mean, I don't know. I think the Night 2 one is doing a whole lot of work for WrestleMania this year, but Randy to me does nothing for me in the ring. What was the Coachella thing? I got to see Madonna once.
I was going to say, if I want to throw Nick off his game, throw a Madonna quote up on the screen. Yeah, so Rude Dog, for our audio listeners, I got to see Madonna once at Coachella. It was a while back, and she was on the dance stage and just playing obscure tracks, but it was cool.
Cool.
Yeah. Sean Plichta's stopped in. Nick, you and Madonna, LOL. What is LOL?
Sorry, Sean.
Yeah.
I really doubt he was laughing out loud. I mean, honestly.
Yeah. Derek Mitchell says, I'm also a Madonna fan. Okay, let's see. Intentional Ronnie says, am I wrong in saying that's exactly what makes Randy and Roman great workers in the old school sense of the term? Hasn't maximizing the reaction move set ratio been pro wrestling for 100 years?
So, I mean, yes and no. I think Roman seems to have a better ability to really turn it into a next gear to me as a fan, as a viewer, than Randy Orton does. Mm-hmm. Listen, there are some matches. I think back to Jerry Lynn and Rob Van Dam, that when I watched their matches in ECW that were stop and start, way too many pauses, that also like that Roman Reigns' matches are guilty in a big way of. But Roman has a way of really turning it around to make them epic by the end. And maybe it's the booking, and maybe Randy didn't have that. I just find Randy's matches, the peak eras that people have pulled from him, as being really not entertaining. And here's the other thing. We all know Roman had his run of not great WrestleMania main events. However, I would also say when he was at his peak, his biggest matches were really excellent and really, really entertaining. I would argue that when Randy Orton had his biggest WrestleMania matches, they were absolutely duds. And you look at WrestleMania 25, which had a really, I guess, hot background story heading into it, and the match was just abysmal.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff Randy just can't do because he'll get hurt. He doesn't want to do. Like, he's just very, very particular. Matt McCarthy, an ex-creative team member, was like working with Randy on a match, and Randy's just like, yeah, I can't do that. Okay, here's all these moves. I'm not going to do them. I want to stay healthy. I want to draw money. I want to, make my dates.
Yeah.
There's just, he dislocated his shoulder pounding the mat once to set up,
Totally.
And
they have different body types too. Randy is so tall, and it's just they're just different men, quite honestly.
Yeah. Tager Laga says Roman Reigns has become a great worker since 2020 because he's now comfortable as the tribal chief and not being force-fed cringy lines by a disgruntled and disgraced Irish American. Roman is definitely comfortable in his own skin. Sean said Roman and Punk was good, need a little physical between them, but Roman got to him at the end, and Punk was very heelish again. Yeah, it's in the eye of the beholder who's the heel in this one. Anything else on kind of the undercard, Natty Maxine, the Penta defense, Dragon
Penta
Lee?
defense, the Penta Dragon Lee, exceptional. I am so high on Penta right now in ways that I didn't anticipate it. I think he could be a future world champion. He's one of my favorite parts of Raw. Absolutely. I thought the match
Bring on
was
more
phenomenal.
open challenges. Yeah.
Yeah, or I liked the idea of today even turning into this match turning into an extended feud. I really liked that segment. Liked everything about it. Liked Penta. Natty, I actually liked that they had her be a lot more dominant than they thought she was going to be. With the win over Maxine, I think they needed to lean into the Ronda Rousey component of her new personality and make her more dominant. I don't think there should be an irony that she looks more UFC, but she is still the same old Natty. I think she needed to have an added spark, and I think they were able to do that. Natty isn't one of my favorite people to see on the screen, but she's also one of those people I think people are inherently happy for when you see her doing well, and that kind of works. One general note, there was a lot of sloppiness there that, listen, it goes back to the opening segment with Brock Lesnar throwing all the masked men around. It went to the Penta and Dragon Lee segment. There's some of the women when they threw Io Sky over the announce table. Someone's gonna get hurt. Like, we got to rein in some of the looseness about throwing people on their neck. That was absolutely a note for the show.
Yeah. The Maxine Natty thing, they're finally getting around to telling a coherent backstory on what happened. When Natty going.
I understand.
So they got into, because they did this in reverse. Natty turned on Maxine, but they didn't explain why. There was no promo. She was just mad at her, and the announcers didn't know what to do with it. And so during the match, the Graves said he understands how Natty feels after thinking she helped Maxine, but Maxine didn't show her proper appreciation. Now, I wrote in my report covering Raw tonight on PWTorch, if only they had actually told that story. Because what you want is Natty coming across as, wait, I didn't train you so you could be good. I trained you so that when you're good, you would give me credit. And they didn't hit that note at all. I think they thought it just would be assumed or self-evident, but it wasn't. It came out of nowhere, and I think they expected people to know the shoulder content. But even with that, and Natty's rebirth as the dungeon, disciple or whatever, the last of the Stu Hart dungeon. It just, that story wasn't told on WWE TV, and they didn't do a good job. So here, so Gray said at the end, you can't disrespect the dungeon and live to tell the tale. That's after Natty won. But they needed to tell the story right away. Natty turned on Maxine, and Natty needed to explain, because when Maxine won, XYZ happened or didn't happen. She should have called me. She should have thanked me. She should have publicly thanked me. She should have, whatever. She didn't show me and of course she has to overdo it, so she's a heel. You want Maxine to have a good, not look like, that Maxine was actually, you got to show appreciation. If someone makes you dinner and it's good, you should compliment them. Like if you made me a good wrestler and I win a title, I should compliment you. So you don't want to do it, but they didn't do that. They just left the chapter out, and they start catching up tonight.
Yeah. I get you.
Yeah. I mean, it ultimately doesn't matter. I mean, one, it's a little bit too late, and two, I mean, I don't know if this feud is meant to build up Natty's character or build up Maxine's character.
Well, I took it as I really felt this was a end to Maxine for a little bit today.
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't shock me, honestly. Sean Blish says everyone here needs to listen to the Nikki's Club. Yeah,
I agree. I want more. I want more interaction and everything. So please.
Rude Dog pointed out there's a backstage segment, and in the background, Austin Theory was talking to Maxine Dupree, who was sitting dejected against the wall. Logan Paul walked into the picture from a side hallway, and then Austin Theory followed him. What do you make of that, if anything? There's sometimes random stuff happens, but
I felt like it was random, especially since they left. I mean, they didn't stick with her and lift her up and walk away with her. They talked to her and chatted and walked away.
Yeah, Maxine is not joining Paul Heyman's faction. She's not going to be in the Vision. That's not going to be, if they expand a woman, it's not going to be that. Are you getting anything of value out of the original El Grande Americano and El Grande Americano? The allegedly the guy who looks like Chad Gable and the guy who looks like Ludwig Kaiser, and people assume it's them under masks. You getting anything out of that, or is it just going on and on?
That's what I'm saying. There's no growth to it. It's just I feel like we're in the exact same spot where we were at last WrestleMania, only they're both well now. But okay, they had the match today. Where does this go? I mean, it's really. I know.
Yeah. I don't know what the payoff is. Ultimately, that was on the Fixed Mailbag last week covered. Satellite Vision 3 goes, Grande feud should be AAA only now. It's way hotter there than on WWE shows.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Nick, you want to add anything else before we sign off?
No. I mean, like I said, it was an enjoyable show. It felt, it was so. I felt in many ways it was such a full show that it had higher stakes than even like the Saturday night's main events that we've come to know. WrestleMania this year does not feel like WrestleMania, and there's a pacing issue that WWE needs to really recognize with the timing of Royal Rumble all the way to the timing of WrestleMania. There's a lot to fix, and there's going to need to be a lot of work that is done to continue with the momentum. I think one of the biggest, most damning things is how long of a stretch there is between the big shows. And I just think they have to really work really, really hard to get people excited for WrestleMania this year. I don't know of anybody literally that is excited about WrestleMania this year. That's their challenge. That's what Endgame needs to be right now.
And they still have time. I mean, they do. I mean, look, if they crescendo at the right time, people will be like, oh, for a little while, people were saying it wasn't going to be good. And look, they just took their time and made it work.
Well, here's the thing, Wade. I'm just going to, and I'm going to belabor this point, is I heard Cody Rhodes give the interview where he said we have a sleeper WrestleMania. Quality-wise, they most certainly might have a sleeper WrestleMania. It could be very, very good. That's not really debatable. Last year, I think we expected a higher quality than we got, but there was still a little bit more enthusiasm attached to it. What you don't want is to get WrestleMania to a point that is not must-see TV, or it's something that you go back and rewatch.
You can't build a streak up.
And that's where we're at right now.
By the way, before people tune out, on our YouTube channel, we put up shorts, like 1 or 2 minute snippets from these live shows. Yeah. And we'll do some of that with Nick Barbati here. To gain traction, I don't do this a lot because I'm just like, what'll be, will be, and I should probably be more proactive.
Yeah.
I need the army of people listening to this, especially on YouTube, but also on the podcast side. Look for our shorts, especially like when they first get posted, because that's when it matters most. And sometimes we put them up late after Raw, sometimes in the afternoon the next day. And same with throughout the week. Go like them and comment on them. Like, start a conversation there. And if you like it, I'm not asking you to lie, but I think they're good. I think we pick out good stuff. and like them. We need to get a bunch of likes to get kind of that next level of YouTube grabbing onto them. And then that's going to help, spread the word about our show where people go, oh, that was 1 minute of commentary that is different than we get elsewhere. Now I want to go listen to the full show and subscribe. So it's just a little, I don't want to ask people to do a lot. I think that's a small thing just go find our shorts. Any of them that you like them. And then especially when you first see, if you get an alert that we posted one, if you set the little bell on your phone, just go watch it and like it and comment. And that can kind of get us to the next level. It's just, it's just, like I said, I'm not super SEO, like algorithm driven in terms of how I do things, but I probably should more. And I know some of you would help if I asked. So I'm asking. So
there you go. That's very kind. Yeah. Please.
Cool. Tommy McLaughlin says the shorts are awesome. Thank you. Sean says, yes, the shorts are fun for sure. Derek Mitchell says, I love the shorts and save them. Cool. So all of you, but I know there's some shorts who have literally there's been some who have no thumbs up. So those of you who are saying you like them, I'm calling you out. You didn't like them in the way that counts by clicking the thumbs up. Mm-hmm. You got to do that every time. Because then basically they have like a 10-minute lifespan, the way the algorithm works. And if you don't get likes and comments, they go, okay, this isn't engaging. And then something else takes over the recommendations. Like it has such a short lifespan. It's this tiny little shooting star window to gain traction. And it can hit 20,000 people if initially a bunch of people like and comment on it, then it gets served up to a bunch of other people. But if you let 2 hours go by, boom, it's dead to them. It's dead to YouTube's algorithm. That's kind of what I'm saying. It's like, that's where I'm like kind of an extra little nudge here, and I'll probably do this more regularly on the show. It's the first time I mentioned it. Like that, do it anytime. Anytime helps, but especially right after it's posted. So anyway, Tommy says, great stream and channel, by the way. Thank you. And we have another super chat, so we got to get to this before I sign off here. Nima Pazar says, best Randy match ever is him against Foley at Backlash 2004. Mick Foley had some really good matches with people who didn't typically have really good matches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that match. I mean, I must admit I did not watch it live. That was the Backlash where the main event was. It was in Canada, right? And they did the run back of. I remember this. This was the Triple Threat WrestleMania 20 main event. They did the rematch of. It was a great show, but I didn't. It's one of those things when you don't watch something live and you go back and watch it, you can never really get the magic that if you had been a pay-per-view you bought.
Sure. Yep.
So I actually watched it much later. I actually watched it after the match that Foley had with Edge at the Chicago WrestleMania. So that would have been 22. That's how much after. And I much preferred that match. I thought that match was more exciting, more dynamic. It's just a preference thing. Randy isn't necessarily for me. But again, I remember after that match, everyone was saying, oh, this was Randy's been made and all that. But I guess it only works if Randy then goes on a long stretch of having great matches with other people. And I don't think that ever happened, quite honestly.
All right, cool. Always fun. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, this turned into like a history show. That was an interesting twist.
It's a post show, but we have fun tangents, sometimes belabored point tangents. It's just going to happen. But yeah.
But wait, the people love us. This is what I'm going to say. So I'm telling, we got to come up with something where you and I are doing something more often. We have to. I think that's what the people want.
I don't know what Jimmy Crab says. Why does this wrestling show have a massive twink vibe? All right.
Why does this wrestling show have a massive twink vibe? Oh, I don't. Jeez.
Yeah, I don't know.
I haven't been called a twink in 20 years.
Yeah. Sean is sorry he didn't show up sooner. Nick, sorry I was so late for you, my friend.
Well, that's you know what, Sean? I saw you writing about the segment. You got to go back and listen, bud, because we had a good show. We needed you.
Yeah. All right. I will throw credits on the screen, and during our credits portion, it'll be people saying nice things about us, Nick. So stay tuned for that. I put the graphic up for VIP membership. A reminder too, you can get, if you want to just see what the VIP ad-free VIP exclusive shows are all about, the ad-free commercial-free versions of the free shows, and then the VIP exclusive like Nikki's Club, you can get a 7-day free trial at patreon.com/PWTorchVIP. You can also search PWTorch in the Apple Podcast app, subscribe to the charcoal gray logo that pops up, the free VIP sample feed, and you can upgrade within that app after a 3-day trial. using your Apple account to unlock all the VIP shows, or just get a full VIP membership through PayPal, credit card, debit card at pwtorch.com/govip. We're on a bunch of platforms, whatever works for you. We try to be there for you. The full VIP membership unlocks the ad-free website and decades of archives, hundreds of retro radio shows from the 90s. If you liked our sojourns into history that Nick just brought up, you will enjoy VIP membership. Nobody else can match online.
Wait, is my old show on there? Am I in the archives?
Yeah. Every show,
or Nick and Tom. Okay.
Almost every single show we've ever done is in the archives. A few were lost to a broken hard drive like 20 years ago, but that was like for 6 weeks. We recovered some of them, but not all of them. But yeah, just about every podcast we've ever done. I mean, our backup expenses, just backing up our server with all our podcasts, is expensive every month. We have so many. They're all there, and I don't want to lose them, so I got to pay a backup fee. There's like all kinds of, stuff that goes under the engine into keeping this thing running, and the bandwidth and all that. And yeah, I know how many podcasts we have up because I know how that backup bill goes up. Although hard drive space gets cheaper over time, so it's not that bad, but it's still there. So anyway, yes, all the Nick and Tom. Was it Tom and Nick or Nick and Tom?
I think it was Nick and Tom.
No, yeah. Of course it was Nick and Tom. You insisted. There was a big thing about that.
You know what? This is going to sound terrible. I don't remember anything about that show. I mean, I really don't. I don't mean it. That is not shade. That is like, you know what? If you remember when we were doing the show, I didn't remember the shows that we did the week prior. I mean, it's just, a different era.
You know what? You have a very good memory for WrestleMania. What match was good and what match of Randy Orton and Mick Foley you liked. You have a good memory, but I just was making stuff up about you and Tom fighting over whose name came first. So a lot of what you don't remember is me just gaslighting.
Well, but actually, and I mean this sincerely, I think some of the best components of wrestling podcasting is people who are just say what they think in the moment and don't get hung up on the things in the past, because you want to be in the moment. I think that's a true, honest perspective of what's going on. And I love these shows. I love the post shows better than anything we do.
Awesome. Well, Derek Mitchell says you guys are like a 70s buddy cop show. So that's cool. Sean Plish says everybody go VIP. Oh, Eric Moy says buddy cop show. Wade is Nick Nolte and Nick is Eddie Murphy. I don't know. That seems like a coin flip.
Sounds good. Yeah, I like that.
Yes. Derek Mitchell says I like the Vince McMahon and Lord Alfred Hayes reference from a TNT show. Somebody mentioned we're like them. All right. Yeah. And we miss Nick from Brattleboro, if you're listening to us.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. He's in the True Nicky's Club, says Sean Plichta. And
I like the one that said, but you remember what you said 3 months ago, Nick. I always remember when I was right.
Of course, yeah.
Yes.
And I just remember when I was wrong, but I remember it differently. I was right.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the flagship, Wade Keller podcast at gmail.com. Rich Van joining me. Send some questions or topic suggestions to us. We'll talk to you all next time.